England and Germany. Maybe the most famous grudge in the entire sport, built almost entirely on penalty shootouts and one unforgettable final. It starts in 1966. England beat West Germany at Wembley to win their only World Cup, on a Jeff Hurst goal that still gets argued about in Germany to this day. Replays never definitively proved the ball crossed the line. Then Germany got their revenge machine running. 1990 World Cup semi-final, England lose on penalties. 1996 European Championship semi-final, on home soil, England lose on penalties again. Gareth Southgate the man who missed the decisive kick. England fans built an entire chant around the bitterness. 2 World Wars and 1 World Cup, dragging 20th century history onto the terraces every single time the two meet. It's petty, it's historic, and it's never, ever calm. Uruguay and Argentina. Before there was Messi, before there was Maradona, before there was a single World Cup trophy to fight over, there was this. The very first World Cup final ever played, July 1930, Montevideo. Uruguay against Argentina. The two nations sit on opposite banks of the same river, the Rio de la Plata, close enough that fans could cross by boat, and thousands of Argentines did exactly that, sailing over to watch their team in enemy territory. Uruguay won it 4-2, lifting the first World Cup on home soil, and in doing so planted a flag that Argentina has spent nearly a century trying to pull back down. This is the oldest grudge in the sport's biggest competition, older than the trophy itself. Everything since, every Copa America battle, every World Cup qualifier, traces back to that one river and that one afternoon nobody in Buenos Aires has ever fully let go of. Iran and USA. Some rivalries are built by football. This one was inherited from it. By the time the two nations were drawn together at the 1998 World Cup, they hadn't had diplomatic relations in almost 2 decades, not since the 1979 revolution and the hostage crisis that followed. Iran's own leadership had spent years calling America the Great Satan. So when the draw paired them in Lyon, the American Federation's own director called it, bluntly, the mother of all games. Before kickoff, Iranian players walked out and handed the Americans white roses, a symbol of peace, and the two teams posed for a joint photo that neither side wanted to be political, and absolutely was. Then Iran won 2-1, Hamid Estelai and Mehdi Matavikia scoring for Iran while Brian McBride got the lone American goal, Middle East Eye, and it remains Iran's first ever World Cup victory to this day. The streets of Tehran didn't stop celebrating for days. One American defender put it best walking off that pitch, they'd done more for US-Iran relations in 90 minutes than 2 decades of politicians managed. That's the rivalry in one sentence. A football match asked to carry the weight of an entire Cold War. Egypt and Algeria. North Africa's biggest football feud, and one that actually turned into an international incident. 2009, World Cup qualifying, and the two rivals needed a playoff in neutral Sudan to decide Africa's final spot at South Africa 2010. But the chaos started before that match even happened. Days earlier in Cairo, rock-throwing Egyptian fans attacked the Algerian team bus, leaving 3 players with blood streaming down their faces. Algeria's coach blamed the assault for his team's defeat that night. Furious, rioters in Algiers torched an Egyptian-owned business in revenge. Then came the rematch in Khartoum. 15,000 riot police deployed just to keep the two sets of fans apart, and Algeria wanted to book their World Cup ticket, with fans in the stadium taunting their rivals with signs blending the words for Egypt and Israel. FIFA later fined the Egyptian Federation and forced them to play future qualifiers over 60 miles from Cairo as punishment. A World Cup playoff that needed its own security summit. That's how deep this one runs. Ivory Coast and Ghana. West Africa's fiercest football relationship has been settled by penalty kicks, twice, in 2 different Africa Cup of Nations finals, 33 years apart. First in 1992, a goalless final that went to a shootout so long every single outfield player and both goalkeepers had to take a kick, Ivory Coast eventually winning it 11-10. Then in 2015, almost the exact same story. 0-0 after extra time, and this time it stretched to 9-8, with Ivorian keeper Boubacar Berry saving Ghana's attempt before stepping up to smash home the winner himself. 2 finals. 0 goals in normal time between them across both. Just pure, unbearable tension resolved from the penalty spot, over and over, until someone finally cracked. Nowhere else in football has a rivalry been decided this way, this many times, on this big a stage. Spain and Morocco. A rivalry built on colonial leftovers that still sit on the map today. Spain still holds 2 enclaves on Moroccan soil, Ceuta and Melilla, a leftover of empire that Morocco has never stopped disputing, and border tension around those 2 cities regularly turns into a genuine diplomatic incident. Then football gave the politics a scoreline. 2022 World Cup, round of 16. Morocco, playing as decisive underdogs against their former colonial ruler, held Spain scoreless through 120 minutes and won it on penalties, becoming the first African and Arab nation ever to reach a World Cup quarterfinal. Spanish players missed spot kick after spot kick while the entire Arab world erupted. It wasn't just an upset. For Morocco, it was payback wearing a football shirt. Saudi Arabia and Qatar. The Gulf's most political football fixture has its own nickname, the Blockade Derby. In June 2017, Saudi Arabia, along with the UAE and Bahrain, severed all diplomatic ties with Qatar, sealing off its land, sea, and air borders entirely over accusations that Doha was too close to Iran. Qatari planes couldn't even fly direct routes anymore. So when the two nations were drawn together at the 2019 Asian Cup, it was their first meeting since the crisis began. And Qatar demolished their blockading neighbor 2-0, Almoez Ali scoring twice in a statement when watched by a nation that couldn't even send its own fans across the border to see it live. Months later at the Gulf Cup, hosted in Doha itself, Saudi Arabia got their revenge with a 1-0 win courtesy of a header from Abdullah Al-Hamdan, Iran Online. And the fact that Saudi Arabia even flew a team indirectly was treated as a diplomatic breakthrough in itself. Two Gulf neighbors, a sealed border, and a football rivalry that had to double as peace talks. France and Algeria. This is the rivalry that isn't really allowed to exist, because the two teams have only ever played each other once. October 2001, Stade de France, Paris, the first meeting since Algeria won its brutal, years-long war of independence from France back in 1962. Both sets of players were presented as messengers of peace before kickoff. Then the French national anthem got booed by thousands in the crowd. France raced into a 4-1 lead, and with the game seemingly settled, something else took over. Hundreds of Algerian supporters ran onto the pitch from behind a goal with 17 minutes left, forcing the match to be abandoned entirely. It wasn't really about the scoreline. For a generation of French Algerians, the date itself was loaded, a painful anniversary tangled up in decades of colonial history that one staged friendly was never going to erase. France and Algeria have not played each other since. Zinedine Zidane, French football's greatest icon, was born in Marseille to Algerian parents, the son of the very rivalry this fixture represents. Turkey and Netherlands. Most rivalries on this list were built slowly, over decades. This one detonated in a single weekend. March 2017, Turkey's foreign minister tries to fly into Rotterdam to campaign among Turkish Dutch voters ahead of a referendum back home, and the Netherlands blocks his plane from landing, then physically escorts another Turkish minister out of the country by force. Riots break out outside the Turkish consulate. Turkey's president brands the Dutch Nazi remnants. Full diplomatic relations between two NATO allies collapse within days. When the two nations later met in football qualifiers, the fixtures were treated as genuine extensions of that crisis. Extra security, banned banners, an atmosphere thick with something that had nothing to do with the scoreline. Two European neighbors, one ugly weekend neither side has fully forgiven. Morocco and Algeria. North Africa's most poisonous rivalry. And it's not really about football at all. The land border between the two has been sealed since 1994. In August 2021, Algeria went further and severed diplomatic relations entirely, accusing Morocco of hostile acts tied to the decades-long fight over Western Sahara, a territory Morocco controls and Algeria's government has bankrolled a rebel movement to contest since the 1970s. That standoff bleeds into everything, including who gets to host AFCON, who Moroccan journalists are even allowed near at regional tournaments, and a running cyber war where hacktivists from each country leak the other's government data as a show of force. Two nations that once fought side by side for independence, now locked out of each other's airspace over a stretch of desert neither will let go of. Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. This one carries weight most fans outside the Balkans never clock. Both nations were once part of the same country, Yugoslavia, until it violently broke apart in the early 1990s. And Croatia and Bosnia weren't just neighbors during that war, they were combatants, Croat and Bosniak forces clashing directly even while both were also fighting a common enemy. The scars from that period run through the football too. Croatia's golden generation, Luka Modric among them, has deep roots stretching into Bosnian territory, and the national teams carry a complicated, loaded history that goes far beyond who wins 90 minutes. It's not the loudest rivalry on this list. It might be the heaviest. Belgium and Netherlands. The derby of the Low Countries. Two nations sharing a border, a language split down the middle, and a football history that's tangled together more than almost any pair in Europe. For decades the gap was enormous. The Dutch had their golden generations, their World Cup finals, their total football revolution, while Belgium played the perennial little brother next door. Then came Belgium's own golden generation, De Bruyne, Hazard, Courtois. And suddenly the little brother was outranking the Netherlands in the world rankings for the first time in living memory. That flip is the whole rivalry now. Two nations that share highways, share TV channels, and absolutely refuse to admit the other one is better. Every one of these rivalries carries something heavier than football: a war, a colony, a blockade, a river nobody's forgotten. That's what makes them impossible to fake. So tell us in the comments, which of these hates runs the deepest, and which team versus team beef did we leave out? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.